Today on Aging Untold, the end of life brings many complex conversations, one of which, for some, can include a decision about their own death.
We have a problem with mortality. We really do.
We'll talk about the divide over end-of-life treatments and what to do if your family is at odds. Plus, from long-held keepsakes to everyday clutter, some things just need to go.
I think it's different arenas. You have the emotional that's tied to the quote stuff, but then you have the clutter that is a health risk.
We've got easy steps to help clear out your space. And then, sewing with spirit.
Just because you're retired don't mean you have to go home and sit down.
Meet the seamstress who's proving that at 85, your best work is yet to come. Experts with advice and solutions. You're watching Aging Untold with Aging Well Coach Catherine Ambrose, gerontologist Sam Craddock, aging expert Amy O'Rourke, and board-certified physician Dr. Ray Rogers. We're all getting older. It's about time we talked about it.
Welcome to Aging Untold. There's nothing controversial about a terminally ill patient fighting to survive. But what about those who are fighting to pass on their own terms? At least 12 states and Washington, D.C. have laws supporting end-of-life treatments. That's according to the advocacy group Death with Dignity. So Sam, what if you as a caregiver or a loved one are at odds with someone who wants end-of-life treatment?
It's not my choice. If someone wants end-of-life treatment, I may have a differing opinion, but it's their choice to make, and I have to respect that regardless. And I think too often we see where medical professionals, caregivers, and definitely family members want to step in and tell us how we should feel or how we should behave in a certain situation. We're allowed to give information, but we have to respect that that person has a right to choose their own destiny.
Right, I really believe in autonomy as long as that person has the ability,
right.
Mentally, cognitively to make that decision, but also as a physician, we're given an oath to do no harm.
I think it's really, really hard to die in this country.
Oh.
And the statistics are 80% of people over 65 want to die at home, and 80% of people over 65 die in the hospital.
Yeah.
So I think what people don't understand is that you have an acute care system that is designed to fix, treat, cure, and you want to die. And so you go into the hospital, well, they're geared up to make you better. So the trick is not to interact with the acute care system if you really want to die. And that's where the rub happens. Like you were saying earlier, Sam, I don't run into as many people want to die and do it proactively. That would be very, very difficult for me. On a personal level, I do believe in autonomy, but I see it more often in the interactions with the healthcare systems. It's really hard to die on your own terms.
Right.
That's
And I think people, as much as we fear dying, we fear loss of control even more.
And pain and suffering.
And so being able to be the king of your own castle, basically making your own choices, makes sense. And you're absolutely right. We don't give aid to dying on our own terms often enough and frequently enough. I mean, look at that case. I don't know if you guys remember in 2014, Brittany Maynard. And she lived in California. She was diagnosed, she was young. She was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And we didn't have laws in California at the time. And so she had to move to Oregon because she made the choice. And she was the movement that really started the trend that allowed for the medical aid in dying across the nation. And while, morally, ethically, I can't impress my morals on someone else. I can't impress my ethics, and I certainly can't impress my own choices. And, you have to respect that she made a choice.
I think it's important, the one thing that you said that's really stuck, and I think people need to understand, the hospital is really for an acute. It really is. It's for something happened, I need help right now, and you can help me. It's not really for you to be in a chronic medical conditions, and I think that's where the differentiation comes from.
We have a problem with mortality. We really do. We don't like to accept mortality. We want to think of ourselves, and we've always wanted to think of ourselves as immortal. and we're going to live forever, and we're going to live forever healthy. And the reality is it slaps us in the face.
So I'm going to bring it back, because that acute conversation and being able to die is very important, and that'll be an ongoing topic. But specifically this, choosing that I want to die, I can respect and understand autonomy. I do, though, have a real challenge with it, because how I feel is that we could be putting subtle pressure on vulnerable populations that think, well, maybe if Brittany did it, maybe if others are doing it, maybe if laws are being passed, then maybe I should start thinking about it because of the condition that I'm in. And I would not want my loved one to feel like they were a burden. And I also feel like we're here on this earth, I feel, for a reason, and that maybe living out a natural progression, not pushing the acute part of it to where we're not kind of allowed to die naturally. We want to die naturally, but also I think, is it because pain isn't being controlled? We have palliative care, we have hospice care. So what's going wrong that this pain is not controlled? And is there something that we can do? We need advocates that are helping us make sure that we're getting the care that we really need.
I think it's a brave thing you're saying, because I think everybody says everybody has their own choice, but I think it's a brave thing you're saying, and I think it needs to be addressed. I think the value of having, people in your life that you can use as mentors, as coaches, as people, as just that would help you come to terms with, one, your diagnosis, and two, how do you really want to, somebody objective. I mean, I'm not going to talk to my husband about that. He's not objective.
Right. So what do you fear most? Well, I fear pain and suffering.
I do.
That's what the hospice program's there for, is to control that pain and suffering. Once you've admitted to hospice, you can say, you know what, no, I've changed my mind. I want to go back to the hospital. I want to be treated. I want to continue treatments for this. And so it's not like you sign on the bottom line and it's
all or none.
It's all or none. So hospice doesn't take away the autonomy, which is what this is all about anyway. We're talking about people that have the cognitive ability to make those decisions over themselves, and they should have a right to make the decision that's going to fit them the best.
Well, especially if they're informed.
As long as
and they
it's
really
informed.
know how we can allow natural death. You just don't know, though, at that last moment, the last hug, the last reconciliation, what it could mean for a loved one, a friend, an ally, or for yourself, maybe that last prayer. And I don't think maybe we need to decide to cut it short, that we can just be informed and have this planned a little bit better.
Coming up, when your house becomes the doctor's office, we'll explain how the latest technology allows you to test for cancer in the comfort of your home. But first, years of clutter can not only take up space, it can also cause stress.
People's stuff weighs so heavy on them.
We'll discuss the small steps you can take now to make a big difference later.
There are many reasons for getting rid of our stuff. Maybe you need the space to move around your home easier. You're downsizing to a smaller house, or maybe moving into an independent living community. Regardless of the reason, there's a way to declutter without the chaos. So ladies, let's first begin with the mental anguish clutter can often create. Amy, what causes that?
Emotions, feelings. I'm attached to my stuff. I like my stuff. The worst thing you can do to somebody is come and say, all right, we're going to start on the kitchen and then we're going to move to the living room. Like, no.
People's stuff weighs so heavy on them. And this is one of the things that older adults will really feel guilt and shame over, and a lot of anxiety over, because they know they have tasks undone. And how do you tackle your mature life tasks? Now, sometimes if people are beyond that and it's beyond them being able to tackle it, the family can deal with that at some point. And it can really be done very quickly. If you're moving into a senior living community, the whole thing can be done in 2 weeks with help. And so, but for those that are struggling with how do we declutter our own stuff because they want to, I feel this heat from you coming. Because they want to declutter.
But I think it's different. There's different variables.
Wait, hang on a second. This is getting a little hot over here because number one, you keep referring to my stuff as clutter, and it took a lifetime for me to build my stuff. and it's important to me.
Good.
And so
I'm
I
not
think
talking
we
about
have-
that stuff.
I understand, but we have to acknowledge that it is important.
Sure it
And it
is.
has memories tied to it. It has a lot of emotion tied. And so we're talking about seniors who are oftentimes in their final years who are faced with, okay, maybe I lost my son and he gave this to me. And while you see it as just a tchotchke and something sitting on a shelf, to me, I see it as the last thing that I have to hold on to him. And so we have to honor that.
Sure.
We do.
I think it's different arenas. You know, you have the emotional that's tied to the quote stuff, but then you have the clutter that is a health risk. Falling is the number one thing that you see in the elderly that can really make everything go downhill. So I think we're just dealing with, you got the emotional, you have the physical, and then you have the health aspects of actually the anxiety and all that. There's a healthy or non-healthy response from that as well. So it's just a lot of different variables that are at play here.
Start with the trash, the stuff that's easy to let go of, and then start with the things that are simplest. People think, oh, I need to tackle that back bedroom or I need to tackle the basement. No, 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 tackle the easy things. Tackle the easy things so you feel progress. And getting into action is going to help you deal with the emotion. You just start doing it. There's a lot of great books, there's a lot of great tips, and there's support groups. There's really great support groups like Downsizers Club all across the country.
Using passion to find purpose at any age.
I just feel like I'm supposed to work. It makes me feel better.
Meet the 85-year-old who traded retirement for her dream job. And after the break, how cutting-edge cancer screenings are putting the power of prevention in your hands.
Groundbreaking, even game-changing. That's what some experts and advocates say about two new tools in the fight against cervical cancer. These latest developments aim to expand access to life-saving screening because cervical cancer can be treatable and survivable with early detection. Reporter Heather Graff explains the existing barriers and recent FDA approvals that put the power of prevention into a woman's own hands.
This was the day I found out I had cancer.
When Toni Cooper Towler snapped this selfie back in October 2017,
I was at work.
she had no idea a life-altering phone call would come just a few hours later.
So I answered, and she said, "Ms. Cooper, I regret to inform you that we have detected you have cervical cancer, stage 2.
Toni's mind went instantly to her 3 young children.
I was really scared because it was just me, you know, and I had 3 people depending on me.
But today, she shares her story as a proud survivor of cervical cancer, a disease that claims the lives of more than 4,000 U.S. women every single year.
Everyone needs to know about it. Everyone needs to know the damage it can do, but also everyone needs to know you could minimize the damage if you just get yourself checked.
Toni says her cancer was caught early during a routine pap smear. And as a patient turned advocate, she now knows that's one of 2 proven screening methods. Experts say the other is an HPV test to detect the human papillomavirus that causes almost all cases of cervical cancer. Both tests are done in a doctor's office using a speculum to scrape cells from the cervix. And while the procedures can be uncomfortable for some women, they're considered highly effective. In May of 2024, the FDA gave the green light to what's known as self-collection HPV tests for use in a healthcare setting. That means you'd still go to the doctor's office, but a pelvic exam would no longer be required. Instead, patients can choose to use one of these kits containing a small swab or brush to collect their own vaginal sample in a private room. After that, it's sent to a lab for HPV testing. And if it comes back positive, there would be a follow-up appointment to talk next steps with the doctor. Professor Jennifer Smith of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill has spent years looking at not just the accuracy of self-collection, but also women's willingness to try it.
And overwhelmingly, women return the kit back, and we found that they found the process of self-collection and mailing highly acceptable, which was really, really very important.
That's why she was supportive, but perhaps not surprised, when in May of 2025, the FDA signed off on the first ever at-home alternative to the Pap smear. Similar to those previously approved for self-collection in a healthcare setting, except this test has been cleared for virtual prescriptions and can be mailed directly to a patient's house. This survivor called it a groundbreaking advancement in preventive healthcare.
With the technology that we have now, you don't have to miss a beat. You really don't have to.
Well, I had no idea about the at-home kits. I'm thinking, boy, I would maybe like to do that and schedule an appointment. I think it's easy to put the appointments off. Maybe not for you, but for me it is.
Well, time and people will say, gosh, a man must have came up with this speculum.
Oh, absolutely, a man designed a speculum.
It's the abnormal cells that you're screening for. Interesting enough, we always talk about cervical cancer, and it's really human papillomavirus that's the agent that's responsible for that cancer. So that at-home screening is screening for the presence of HPV.
If the HPV virus is detected in these in-home tests, then what would your, as a physician, recommendation be? And would you recommend that all of us, though I don't have any of those parts any longer.
So, and that's where
because
the fallacy
I was an early screening for.
But that's where the fallacy comes. You don't have HPV or you can't have cervical cancer because you don't have a cervix, but you have a vagina. So you can have vaginal cancer, that's HPV. You can have vulvar cancer, that's HPV. You can have rectal.
So those of us that have had a full hysterectomy, because I did have early detected cervical cancer, so those of us that have, we should still be getting those screenings.
So my recommendation, if you've ever had HPV or the reason that you had that hysterectomy, to continue to get screened.
Okay.
Now the recommendations keep changing, even for ACOG, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. They keep changing. So some gynecologists will tell you if you've had a hysterectomy, you don't need it anymore.
Right.
But that's you don't have a cervix, but you have a vagina, you have a vulva.
Okay.
So you have to kind of look at everything in context, talk to your physician. They know your history.
As a care manager, Amy, have you experienced this to remind people to get these appointments?
Well, I
screens?
think the point is, let's get the word out. If we didn't know about it, the whole country doesn't know about
That's
it. So
right.
I think education,
I had no idea.
talking about it is the best thing we can do to prevent all these cancers.
After the break,
I'm not the rocking chair kind of people.
we'll tell you about a journey tailor-made for one seasoned seamstress.
More and more older Americans are re-entering the workforce, a trend known as unretiring. While reasons vary, including the rising cost of living, some say they just want to make connections and find a sense of purpose again. Dedrick Russell introduces us to a North Carolina woman who's using her passion to defy assumptions about aging.
The sound of working is music to Alice Taylor's ears.
Supposed to work. In order to get what you need, you have to work for it.
That is the philosophy Taylor lives by. She learned how to use her hands for work when she was a young girl. On this day, she is still using her hands. She does all the tailoring for Charlotte's Three Dillards. She adjusts sleeves on shirts and jackets, hems pants, and works on gowns. That's her specialty. She works 5 days a week, 8 hours a day.
I can just sit there and work as long as people leave me alone.
Did I mention how young Miss Taylor is? 85 years old. Why do you think it's so important that you still contribute to the workforce?
That's just a part of me. My father, he instilled that into us. That was what we were supposed to do.
By the way, this is Taylor's second stint working full-time. You worked, 30-some years or something like that before you retired?
Yeah.
What made you want to jump back into the workforce?
It gives me energy. I just feel like I'm supposed to work. It makes me feel better. Just because you're retired don't mean you have to go home and sit down. And I'm not the rocking chair kind of people.
What's your secret?
What's my secret? The Spirit of God.
And it appears it's that spirit that gives Ms. Taylor the strength to keep at it.
It's okay to work. Age doesn't mean anything. You have to work.
I was amazed at her manual dexterity at 85.
Me too.
Her
kept saying,
hands
"Whoa."
and how well, I mean, to be
Very
able to
steady.
needle, to thread a needle.
She kept doing it, never lost it. My mother was a seamstress, and if she had lived, I think she would be like that. I love what she said about it created energy for her.
Exactly.
She knew herself well enough that this is
Because
a
it's
motor.
movement. It's movement. It's circulation. You have a purpose. You have to at least get up to get dressed to go.
Yeah.
And then you're practicing that dexterity every day. That's that
was-
mind,
yeah.
body. You're practicing That's a form of exercise.
And she decided she wasn't a couch potato. Now, what I also found interesting was she said she got into it for socialization, but it looked like she was in a room alone. And I was like, okay.
I bet though she's got planned projects, so she's very future forward, and she's talking to the people that she's doing this
Right,
for.
especially with the alterations. You're talking to them. You got to get
You
the
gotta
hem
measure
right. You
'em.
get them.
Yeah.
You got to measure them, so you get to know people. She was completely awesome.
The reality is we maybe shouldn't retire. And I know that's controversial, but
You're going to get complaint letters.
I know. I mean, she's not a couch potato. She's not going to sit at home in a rocking chair.
I love that.
Yeah.
She said,
she just 85.
I'm not a rocking chair people.
I'm not rocking
And I'm
chair
with
people.
you. I'm with you because as long as I can stay strong cognitively and physically, I'll continue to work. We don't talk enough about aging, and that's why we're here, to embrace it and talk about it together. Until next time.
On the next Aging Untold.
You're not giving up control. You're actually protecting yourself and you're protecting your assets.
Making a plan for your finances before you're unable to. We explain the ins and outs of designating a financial power of attorney.